If people like Putin are not put in their place and stopped, this kind of authoritarianism and this kind of evil will spread. There have been times of peace in the world and there have been times of turmoil, and we should never take those times of peace for granted. The film basically tells the story of what we do with the convoy effort and some of the people, just a few of the people that are participating. And of course, some of the heroes that we go and help there in Ukraine. I first joined the convoy in February of 2023. That was my first time. And as an American, I was one of the first two that had gone on convoy. So it was a very new thing to myself. I didn't know what to expect. But the connections that I made there and the people that I met were just heroes through and through. I was so impressed with the abilities of the people who both were organizing the convoy and participating in it, and the ones who were helping get that supply of vehicles and supplies to the troops there in Kyiv.
This is my second convoy, so I first joined them in February of 2023. I'd found out from a friend that he was going to be going on an aid convoy to Ukraine. I didn't know anything about what that would entail. Myself and my friend Stan Miller were the only Americans and the first Americans to ever join on one of the 69th Sniffing Brigade's convoys. Now this time there may be 6 or 7 of us. I didn't ask any of those guys to come, except for one, my friend Keith Ory, who came with me to help be on the documentary that we're filming.
For the soldiers, they're living in their bubble, and at some point they just start to feel like they're alone. As soon as they're receiving these trucks exactly here, meeting the exact people who donated and who brought them, and this energy is going spreading, and it's actually energizing them because they get inspired that they're not alone. They see people, and I think that's the crucial for soldiers to come here and receiving it in front.
And it's really an empowering moment for both of the people involved, both the troops that we meet and give them the tools so they can continue their brave work, and for all the drivers and supporters who go there to see these defenders, to shake their hands, to offer words of encouragement, and hope that we see them again. So this has been going on since March of 2022. And we've delivered over just, I believe today, on April 10th, April 11th, we're delivering our 40th convoy to Kyiv. And that's almost 670 trucks full of supplies that we brought. So the trucks themselves are pretty standardized. They're secondhand, but very mechanically sound trucks. And they're all like a civilian pickup truck. They're a 4-door, 4x4 diesel pickup truck, and then it's been outfitted with a night vision camera, a drone jammer, other things. Some of them are specialized as medevac vehicles as well. So these vehicles go there, and they come with a set of street tires that we drive them there on, but also a set of mud tires for each truck, because that can be very important in the off-road conditions. But then we fill the trucks up with any other things we've got, and that may be everything from medical kit to sleeping bags. We provide a lot of drones. We fundraise and send a lot of FPV and Mavics, things like that. Also, if there's something special that a unit's requested, we'll do our best to fulfill that request as well. And then many of the drivers just bring along their own sort of care package, whether it's chocolates from Belgium or supplies. I've brought a bunch of stuff from the US. Some people will get other donations of everything from trench candles to tourniquets and provide those, just to let the troops know that, we're looking out for them. We're doing everything we can on the home side to provide them with the tools and kit that they need. We're a fully, volunteer and donation funded group. So, we fundraise, we make the social media appeals. I know everyone is, very exhausted from giving, frankly. I mean, like this war, people were generous. In 2022, they did what they could to give to support the Ukrainians. And then it went into 2023. And so, some donors got tired or their resources became short through 2024. Here we are in 2025. And that's both been, a, you know, a marathon of endurance for the donors, but also it's enabled us to build a pipeline of a track record, so people know, hey, these guys are delivering the vehicles. They're continuing to deliver the supplies. They've got proof they've been doing it successfully. And this all continues to build, confidence in the donors that their money is going to a good cause. So we've been lucky enough to be able to keep up the pace. We all get tired, I get tired. We've got a busy life. We have families, we have jobs, we have stuff to do. But I remember that every one of these Ukrainians that's out there sacrificing and fighting and defending is doing it for us. Make no mistake. If Russia is allowed to take Ukraine, they are not going to be satisfied. That will not be the end of it. So this effort is for all of us. All of us in the Western democracies that hope for peace and security need Ukraine to succeed. And the effort also affects people in the East, because if this is allowed to continue unopposed, people in Taiwan will pay the price. Maybe Korea's neighbors to the south will pay the price, because if it's not stopped, if people like Putin are not put in their place and stopped, this kind of authoritarianism and this kind of evil will spread. There have been times of peace in the world and there have been times of turmoil, and we should never take those times of peace for granted. So that thought keeps pushing me forward. But on a more personal level, whenever I'm tired, whenever I get exhausted, whenever I get a little bit overwhelmed, I just think of, the people in Kyiv who have to go to sleep and hope that, the buzzing sound of a shahed doesn't get louder and louder until it bursts into their apartment wall, or that when they wake up, maybe the power is on. And the sacrifices that they continue to make day in and day out pick me up and push me forward. So anything I can do here in the peace of my country and all the Europeans who likewise are pushing forward this effort from the peace of their country should prize that peace and know that this freedom is not free. And it comes at a price that the Ukrainians are paying every day. And thinking back to the founding of our own nation in 1776, we wanted to break free from a colonial power that had been, dictating terms to us and like sapping our resources for the gain of that empire. And of course, those parallels are very clear with what has been happening with Russia and Ukraine. Russia for a long time interfered in Ukraine's affairs. You can go back centuries, and Ukraine was like, unfortunately, the collision place of Russia and the Western world. So Russia finally had that connection broken. And in the Maidan Revolution, again, Ukraine tried to reinstate their own vision of how they wanted to lead their life. And Russia keeps pressing, like they just cannot take the hint that this nation wants to be free and lead a future of self-determination. And I'm deviating a little bit from, the founding of America thing, but this is an important thing. This is like an ex-boyfriend or ex-husband that just can't let go of that woman and keeps saying, no, you belong to me. I'm going to dictate to you. You belong to me. This is disgusting. These people in Ukraine should not have to put up with Russia constantly pressing on their affairs and trying to make them a part of a Russian empire that they don't want to be part of. So in 1776, the Americans had had enough of the British Empire dictating terms to us here, and we moved for our independence. And thankfully, at that time, we had the support of France, which enabled us to eventually have that victory. And it wasn't easy, and a lot of life was lost. And in 1812, the British returned to try and have a round two of that. And we eventually were able to push this call away here. We eventually were able to succeed in that contest, and we had our independence, But it's a question of who's going to arise at this time to support Ukraine in this battle, to finally put Russia back behind its border and have the peace that Ukraine deserves. And I think it's patriots from all over the world that understand that this freedom comes at a cost, and they're going to support Ukraine in this. Reading about war and seeing the effects of war are two different things. You can look at all the books and you can look at all the newscasts, and the human mind has just a weird way of compartmentalizing things. Yeah, I've seen videos, I've seen newscasts. I know the bombs are dropping. I know things are getting blown up, and I know there's people dying. But being there and seeing the charged shells of these buildings and seeing the destruction, the broken machines and the broken men, walking around, missing limbs and so on, that makes it real. You have to see these things for your own eyes. I'm sure that there is, when you get closer to this, the human empathy comes forward and pushes past the propaganda and whatever disassociation was happening in your head before, and it becomes black and white. And that's why I want to bring viewers a little bit closer to that by seeing it through eyes of average Americans, people who have gone there and seen it, so they understand what is really going on. And that's why the convoy is important in one regard, because of the hundreds and hundreds of drivers who have participated in this, they all leave changed, having been there with their own eyes, having visited some of the places that you mentioned, and having seen both the tragedies of war and the warmth and the welcomeness and the gratitude of the Ukrainians we meet. They go back home with that in their heads and their hearts, and they know that doing this, supporting Ukraine, is the right thing. When I set out to do it, again, showing people those things and changing their mind is it's the end goal. You want to affect people and make their hearts and their minds understand what's happening and make it real for them. So I think a movie is a good media to do that through. It should be more relatable. So hopefully we achieve that goal. I really think that being there is the best way. And of course, that opportunity it's limited, because not everyone can take so much time out of their life to go there in person and do it. But hopefully this vehicle will show you that many people, regular people like myself, have made that choice, have gone there and have seen this. And I hope that they will take away what their eyes and their ears are telling them, that real people can make a difference in the history that we are writing together. Because I believe when someone sees this and it comes to them, they're like, wow, like I can't imagine supporting, the other side in this, Russia. Like, certainly the things they are saying that I've read on social media or whatever don't look at all like the situation on the ground. Like, it would be crazy not to support the Ukrainians. I think that takeaway is the biggest thing that folks can do, is to know that in their hearts, because then when they talk with someone, they'll say, what I saw was this, and they'll share their feelings on that. Or if they are mentioning something on social media, they might leave a comment that's supportive, and that will reach out, that will change someone else's mind. Eventually, with enough people talking, the whole conversation shifts. And despite some of the things you read on social media that may be negative or misinformation, much of that comes from, paid bot accounts that are set up by the Russians and their allies. In the real world, something like 70% of Americans support maintaining aid for Ukraine, sending more aid, and they know black from white. They know this is the right thing to do. So I just want to help reaffirm that inner empathy and let people see for themselves what's going on, so that they know this is the right thing. Usually this is the thing. When you're having a face-to-face conversation, it's different. I mean, social media is terrible in that regard, because someone will just shoot some rude thing off into the internet and turn around and never think twice about it. And that rude thing can be read by tens of thousands or millions of people, and it can affect them. But personal conversations, face to face, it's much more diplomatic. So somebody might talk with me, and if they feel like, I'm going to say something to Peter about this, they'll be like, well, isn't it true that it's they can't even speak Russian in Ukraine? It's against the law. I'm like, no, not at all. Like, I've been there, and they can speak both freely. Some people, their capabilities are stronger in Russian, so they're trying to learn Ukrainian, but it's not against the law. I mean, that's like saying in the US, if you're speaking Spanish, you would be in trouble. Like, no, certainly English will get you further and it's appreciated here, but it's okay. You can speak the tongue you're comfortable with. That's the same in Ukraine. Or they'll say something, ridiculous like, well, Zelensky is stealing all the money. I'm like, well, have you seen Putin's palaces? I mean, do you see how this guy gets around with his entourage? Do you see the huge yachts that his oligarch friends have? I mean, like, all the evidence points to they are saying what they are doing. Meanwhile, Zelensky is like, they are doing his work in Kyiv and trying his best to keep his country together. Like, please, folks, let's look at some facts here. And so if I'm calm and have a few sentences with a person and I share these viewpoints, usually the reasoning comes through, and then it's easy to make them an ally. I don't meet too many people that are strongly pro-Ukraine. I'm sorry, strongly pro-Russia, anti-Ukraine here in the US. And that's why I think it's important to share the story with the movie, because so many people are either lightly in favor of Ukraine or they're just kind of on the fence. And it doesn't take much to make them a believer. It's important to think about how Americans view the world. And I'm not really sure how to define this well, but it's different than Europeans. Americans, we've normally been much more isolated. It's normal for a European to speak several languages and have traveled through several countries just by nature of the geography. But here in America, English is all we need. And we just know our own country and the way we think and the way we've been told the world works. So it's always interesting to speak to my Ukrainian friends and get their viewpoints. It definitely expands the mind some. And also being on the convoy, being together with this common purpose, there's a sense of camaraderie between the men and women on the convoy, what we are doing together, the experience that we share. It's very heartwarming, and we all leave changed for the better. As the movie, production was happening and stuff, we would sit around and talk. And I was talking with a buddy of mine, and we're like, man, what should we call the name? We need a better name. And there's a song from a group called the Beastie Boys. It's like a hip hop group. They were popular in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s. And it was called No Sleep Till Brooklyn. And so that name is kind of like imprinted in the memory of many people of my and the second generation after me, no sleep till Brooklyn. So that catchphrase, probably somewhere in our subconscious came up. And my buddy is like, let's call it No Sleep Till Kyiv. And I was like, actually, it's got a ring to it, because that's kind of what we do. I mean, although no one is stopping and rolling out their bed and taking an actual rest on the convoy, we do take our turns sitting in the passenger seat and kind of, for a short spell. But I'll tell you, basically for 30 something hours, we get no good sleep. So there's that part of it. There's the endurance of the drive marathon to Kyiv, and the fact that it has a ring to it, So No Sleep Till Kyiv is the name. And for us, there's going to be, no rest until there's peace for Ukraine.